4 a.m. this morning on News and Views. And we know about the scramble for Africa. The Chinese, the Russians, the Americans, the Europeans, everyone has got an interest in Africa. And the latest, we've heard about Japan, who have indicated an interest in Africa as a response to Chinese initiatives. We joined on the line this morning by research associate at the African Center for the Study of the United States at the University of Witswatersrand, Gideon Chitanga. Gideon, good morning to you and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good morning.
Gideon is Yes, welcome as always. We appreciate you taking time out talking to us. And the Japanese interest in Africa. Now, this is quite an interesting development, considering that the entire world has set its radar and its focus on Africa.
Yes, I think that it is a very interesting development. In the past week, Japan announced at the Tokyo Africa conference in Tunisia that they are interested in Africa, and definitely they were presenting what we would call a Japanese model, for lack of a better phrase. And in that, they are saying they will give about 5 billion over 3 years as loans and about 30 billion in aid. And they emphasize that they want to implement a model which will allow Japan to grow with Africa, partly focusing on human resource capacitation and incentivizing development in partnership with Africa. But what is key or what is interesting is the motivation behind this initiative is part of the broader G7 agenda to sort of contain the growing partnerships or initiatives between China and Africa. And by the way, last week China said that it is also going to be cutting tariffs by about 98% to about 16 lesser developed countries. So this is a huge initiative that will allow these lesser developed countries to export the mining and agricultural products at 98% cut in terms of tariffs, obviously increasing their market access into China. And I think for a number of African countries, which include Rwanda, the Central African Republic, Mozambique, among others, it is crucial for them to get free international market access because this will allow their economies to grow. This will create employment within these countries, particularly in the agriculture sector, which is the main sector that creates the biggest percentage of employment in African countries. Secondly,
Yes.
we know that much of the West, or much of the G7, if we like, introduces or has quite a number of structured tariffs which inhibit their ability to import goods from African countries. So this is such a huge step in terms of making baby steps in opening a tariff-free global economy where Africa is able to freely export much of its products. We hope that this initiative can be expanded and those countries that are interested in trading with Africa can allow Africa to export more to global markets. The other dimension of it really is it is tragic that this idea, much talked idea of the debt trade is being used without paying attention to more and more research, which is refuting this and saying that there is a lot of self-evident, particularly infrastructure development in Africa, which is a product of partnerships between Africa and China. And I think that what Africa requires, or African countries require, is capital that allows them to grow with very minimal preconditions. And secondly, that allows African leaders to take responsibility instead of being treated contemptuously or or arrogantly by big powers which provide either capital as loans or capital as aid, because Africa pays back whatever comes into the African countries eventually. So it's not like the African countries are given a free meal and therefore they have to happily meet certain conditionalities. And fundamentally, I think the shift also speaks to African countries in the sense that these opportunities are not always available. So it is important for African countries to make sure that they have institutions, responsible leadership that can utilize these opportunities and make sure that the ordinary citizens benefit and that their livelihoods are improved. And this is probably key because in Africa-China partnerships, there's an emphasis to improve the livelihoods of the people. And you can see the direct impact because all the infrastructure projects, they have this direct link to the different communities which have access or use this infrastructure. So going back to what Japan has said, we wait to see how this initiative will unveil, but I think the purpose should go beyond geopolitical competition and focus on transforming lives instead.
Yes, I think, Gideon, what is important is looking at the geopolitical considerations and the one concern that has been expressed, particularly with regard to China and its involvement in Africa, is to look at China, its lending practices, and also as far as the debt that is owed by Africa to China. And we've heard this over and over again, where, China at some point in time will actually own these African countries. And we see China obviously denying, that this is the case and saying that this is a lie that is made up by the likes of the United States and other Western countries to deflect a responsibility and blame for the African situation.
To be fair, the debt trap argument is speculative. It is mostly, at the moment, there is no single country where China is going to court to seize assets or to entrap the African countries in a way that will allow the various investing institutions to take property in Africa or assets or mineral resources. So what we can fairly say is that this is a very speculative argument that was on the language or propaganda, if you like, that is used to secure a geopolitical advantage. Obviously, a lot of African countries are highly indebted to the big donors, or if you want, to the big investors. But I think the most dangerous lending for African countries comes from the International Monetary Fund, in the sense that it is difficult to service the debt, and quite often the process of servicing such debt takes all the resources that could be potentially invested in social programs back into servicing the international monetary loans. The debate would be fair if both the West, in cooperation with China, would be saying, let's look at improving the terms of access to capital in a way that allows African countries to at least save some resources that could be committed to reinvestment on one side, and to social programs where the government is directly responsible to providing services on the other hand. And the history of the International Monetary Fund shows that wherever it has provided its financing, you will see some kind of a shock therapy program, because governments are pressured they are pressured to squeeze their own budget to service the International Monetary Fund loans at the expense of social programs like health, like education, like provisions to other social amenities, which are necessarily needed by citizens of different African countries which are heavily indebted. They are debts to private institutions. In China, such debts are quite coordinated closely under the government, and I think they are fairly easier to renegotiate, as we are seeing in the case of Zambia. But I think the IMF process is tough, is rigorous, it provides less maneuverability for these countries which are highly indebted, and the program for highly indebted countries also. The social costs are just too immense for these African countries. The political costs are too immense for these highly indebted countries, and they would rather just squeeze their citizens and deny them social amenities and facilities and programs which are rightfully should be provided by government.
Well, Gideon, thank you very much for that, for unpacking what you have with us this morning. We will be watching developments, but for now, all the best to you. Take care.
Thank you.
Gideon Chitanga joining us this morning, and with that, a quick break. We're going to come back. It's Ethically Secure, Imtiaz Sayed, and this is Crime Talk coming up.